Tonight, Impact Wrestling Against All Odds. It's Impact Wrestling's latest Impact Plus special event, and it is a very, very big show. It's a big card. There's a lot of ramifications and certainly big, exciting matches on this show. We will be doing a watch-along live tonight here on the channel, so be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for the watch-along, but also you'll be notified when we go live for the post-show reaction stream as well. That's right, there's going to be 2 live streams tonight, one doing a live watch-along, one doing a post-show reaction stream, breaking everything down. I don't like to call it a review because I don't feel like it's really a review. It's more of an opinion, chatting with the live comments, interacting with you guys, seeing how we felt about the event, where do we think it's going to go going forward, what do we think were the high spots, the low spots, all that kind of stuff. So I don't really call it a review. I call it more of a reaction stream. Nevertheless, it's a very exciting show, and the road to Slammiversary truly picks up pace tonight at Against All Odds, and certainly with that main event, that ginormous main event in outside of the usual Impact Wrestling setting, has Slammiversary ramifications as well. So it's a very exciting show. So we're going to do some predictions here, a bit of a preview as well as we hype up Against All Odds tonight on Impact Plus. So let's start off with Tenille Dashwood versus Jordynne Grace. Now, Tenille Dashwood's storyline in recent episodes of Impact Wrestling and recent Impact Plus events has been about her search for a tag team partner. Now, recently she set her sights on the former Knockouts tag team champion Rachel Ellering. However, Dashwood's interest has caught the attention of Ellering's current tag team partner, Jordynne Grace. Following an altercation on Dashwood's hot new talk show, All About Me, Grace challenged Dashwood to a singles match, and the two will now collide at Against All Odds. Now, this is interesting because it feels inevitable that either Jordynne Grace or Rachel Ellering is going to turn heel. The reason I've been saying this is because they are former Knockouts tag team champions, but the whole point recently, isn't it, is about Jordynne Grace being the weak link. Oh, Jordynne Grace, you're the weak link. You're the reason we're losing and all this kind of stuff. And she seemed very down, very disappointed about the loss and her perception as the weak link of the tag team. So it definitely feels like that's kind of the direction that they're going in. I suppose the issue now is who turns heel? Is it Jordynne Grace or is it Rachel Ellering? Does Jordynne Grace turn heel because she's the weak link and she's tired of people calling her the weak link? And, you know, I used to be a Knockouts champion before I started teaming up with you, and now, even though we won the tag team championship, you're saying I'm the weak link. You're the reason for my demise. You're the reason for my tumble from grace, if you will. Or do we see Rachel Ellering as the one to turn heel and say, look, I can't team with a loser all the time. I can't team with someone who's constantly losing. I can't team with someone who's the reason we're no longer the Knockouts tag team champions. You're the one that's the reason for the loss. So if I had to pick one of the two that I think is going to turn heel, I probably would say Jordynne Grace. We know Jordynne Grace has just re-signed to Impact Wrestling. 2 more years, 3 more years, something like that. Multi-year contract extension. Big get for Impact Wrestling. And historically, whenever a talent re-signs with the company, they get a new, renewed push because the company knows they're going to be around for a period of longer time. So I'm going to say Tenille Dashwood wins this one. Now, we've seen Caleb with a K get involved. Specifically, at the last Impact Plus event, we saw Caleb with a K actually was the reason why Tenille Dashwood and Taylor Wilde won their match. So I suspect that maybe Caleb with a K gets involved, allows Tenille Dashwood to defeat Jordynne Grace, and then maybe, just maybe, this is the time that Jordynne Grace finally snaps and turns on Rachel Ellering. Maybe that's the direction that they're going in. After tonight's loss, it's one loss too many for Jordynne Grace, and she just goes, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not putting up with this anymore. Attacks Rachel Ellering and blames her for the reason of these recent losses. So I'm going to say Tenille Dashwood wins this one, and I'm going to say that the Jordynne Grace heel turn happens tonight. Even though that might not be factually accurate, maybe it happens sometime down the line. But we're getting some. It's either Jordynne Grace or Rachel Ellering. They're the one. One of them is turning heel. I feel very certain about that. Next match is the X Division #1 contender match. Look at the talent in that match, by the way. There's been so much discussion and talk recently about the X Division having a renewed focus in Impact Wrestling. That they want to get back to, or they want to get to a point where essentially the X Division is of equal importance and stature as the Impact World Championship. Now, is that actually possible? You know, time will tell. The results will be what history judges that on. But I really applaud Impact Wrestling for giving the X Division this renewed focus. Certainly in 2021, they've really pushed it really hard. Obviously, recently you've had Josh Alexander and TJP do that incredible 60-minute Iron Man match. All of this kind of stuff. The Super X Cup tournament returning. People like Ace Austin regularly competing in the division again. Chris Bay, Trey Miguel returning, having X Division originals like Pete Williams come back. All of that kind of stuff is this renewed focus on the X Division. And having someone like Josh Alexander as the X Division champion, someone that maybe traditionally you wouldn't have expected to be the X Division champion because you would have considered him to be more focused on the Impact World Championship or something like that. But someone that's a true hybrid of style, someone that has a contrast to the high-flying X Division style. Styles make matches. Josh Alexander versus people like in this match, whether it's Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, Pete Williams, Rohit Raju, having those kind of matches, that's what makes the X Division so great. It's the contrasting styles. It's the difference in styles. Styles make matches. Styles make prize fights. And I think that's what we're going to get, whoever wins this one. So I'm very excited, very, very excited about this one. But we will determine who is next to challenge X Division champion Josh Alexander. After staking their claim for the #1 contendership, P.T. Williams, Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Chris Bay, and Rohit Raju will fight for the rights. Who scores the victory at Against All Odds and becomes the new #1 contender for the X Division championship. This one's a really tough one to predict, because, frankly, anyone that wins this match, it feels like a big match. I'm not going to say Ace Austin, because Ace Austin and Josh Alexander have kind of had their moments for the X Division Championships. I'm not going to say them. Rohit Raju, it would be a babyface versus a heel match, so that does make sense. But again, he was the X Division champion last year. I think he's kind of cycled out of the picture a little bit. So that leaves Pete Williams, Trey Miguel, Chris Bay. I think it's a toss-up between any of them. I really do. One would think, when they say #1 contenders for the X Division Championship, that probably means Slammiversary. That isn't odds on, pun intended. That isn't, odds on, because we could see a situation whereby, like we have in the past, say Impact Under Siege, where #1 contenders match actually meant on the following edition of Impact. So the person that wins this match could either challenge him at Slammiversary or on Impact on Thursday night. So we just don't know at this point, reality, when this match is going to happen. And again, that depends on the winner. If P.T. Williams wins this match, I think he challenges Josh Alexander on an edition of Impact, because I don't think that's a Slammiversary match. If Trey Miguel or Chris Bay wins this match, there's a high chance they challenge him at Slammiversary, because that is a Slammiversary level match. I mean, and it's so difficult to pick. Trey Miguel versus Josh Alexander, I'm really here for. I think that'll be a fantastic match. Chris Bay versus Josh Alexander, again, I'm really here for. I think it'll be a great match. Pete Williams, I mentioned before, the story that I really like, and maybe it's just because it's my idea, but a story that I really like is the idea of playing on Josh Alexander's broken neck. You got two Canadian stars, Pete Williams, Josh Alexander. On top of that, you can have a situation whereby the Canadian Destroyer, which is so overused, and it's like the modern day DDT and Superkick, isn't it? That it was so special. I remember the first time I ever saw the Canadian Destroyer. I was on YouTube, ironically, mid-2000s, just after TNA had first started, and I saw the Canadian Destroyer. It blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. I thought the guy that Pete Williams had hit it on, it might have been AJ Styles. The guy he hit it on, I thought, was dead. It was just the sickest, most amazing move you've ever seen in your life. And then over time, more and more people have done it, and it becomes nothing and all that kind of stuff. But you can still play it up. You can still play a storyline where Pete Williams hits the Canadian Destroyer, and then they sell the previously broken neck. Well, man, this guy's got a broken neck. You tried to end this guy's career. He's on the top of the world. He's been a tag team guy for ages, becomes an X Division champion, and he's rising up the cards, and you try and take that all away with a Canadian Destroyer. You tried to break his neck. Maybe they do 3 in a row or something like that. There's a story there. And I mentioned that I don't think it's a Slammiversary match, but maybe I should backtrack on that a little bit and say, if they make it mean something, why can't it be a Slammiversary match? But I'm not going to say Pete Williams. I'm going to go with Trey Miguel, because I like the idea of a Josh Alexander-Trey Miguel match for the X Division Championship at Slammiversary. I think that'd be an unbelievable match. But frankly, it's a toss-up. Anyone could win this one. I know that's a cop-out for a prediction video, but this one's just going to be a great match. It's just going to be a great match. The only issue they'll have is preventing it from turning into a cluster. If there's 5 people involved, you have to pick your spots. Everything has to be timed out, but these guys are very, very good at doing that. So I'm very excited for this one. Now, Knockouts Tag Team Championships are on the line tonight at Against All Odds, which is exciting because the Knockouts Tag Team Champions Fire and Flavor defend their championships against Deonna Purrazzo's henchwomen, Kimberly and Susan. There's no rest for the weary in the Knockouts Tag Team division. After putting their rivalry with Jordan Grace and Rachel Ellering to rest, Fire and Flavor was soon confronted by their next 2 challengers for those Knockouts Tag Team Championships in Kimberly and Susan. Now, the 2 tag teams are set to compete at Against All Odds in what promises to be an edge-of-your-seat clash. I think this one's relatively easy to predict. Obviously, Fire and Flavor, they've only just won the tag team championships back. They dropped them to Rachel Ellering and Jordan Grace for a very short period of time before winning them back at Under Siege. So I expect them to retain here. I think they're not placeholders, but I think they hold the championships until Slammiversary. I still think the Iconics come to Impact Wrestling. I know I've seen a couple of videos here on YouTube from quite high-profile and high-platform people saying that they think the Iconics are going to go to AEW. I just don't see it. I don't see why that makes sense from their point of view. I think it makes way more sense for them to go to Impact, considering there's a tag team division for them there. And I think if they come in, I think they go straight to the top. Maybe they don't win the titles immediately, but they certainly challenge for them. I could see a situation where Fire and Flavor, they say, look, we've beaten everyone in the Knockouts tag team division. We challenge a tag team to appear at Slammiversary, do an open challenge, a bit like they did last year to open the show with the Rascals and the Motor City Machine Guns. Do something similar, and out come the Iconics. I could see something like that. So I think Fire and Flavor retain tonight. There's been some dissension with Kimberly and Susan as the backup henchwoman of Deonna Purrazzo. There's a lot of infighting there. I mentioned before, I wouldn't be against seeing a situation where Kimberly and Susan, they're kind of just written off by Deonna Purrazzo. She says, look, I don't need you. Why? I've got better backup, and that backup is Steve Macklin and Wesley Blake. Of course, we know Steve Macklin has the connection with Deonna Purrazzo in real life, so it plays off that, and it gets the Forgotten Sons into Impact Wrestling. We know Steve Macklin's coming, but what about Wesley Blake? He could certainly be coming, certainly in July, once his 90-day non-compete clause with WWE expires. So maybe this is the beginning of the end with Kimberly and Susan. I personally as well, the Susan character, Sue Young, Susie, I think now is time to do something different. I don't know if that's necessarily bringing back Sue Young. They're kind of trying to keep her special. I enjoyed the Susie gimmick. That was a play off Kylie Ray, though, wasn't it? Susan we've seen pretty much since Bound for Glory-ish last year, or just after then. So maybe it's time to see something else. Maybe it's time to see a different personality in Sue Young. What that is, time will only tell. Maybe we need Father James Mitchell to come back and convert Susan or Susie or Sue Young into something else. What that would be, I don't know. She's got more personalities than Mankind and Bray Wyatt mixed together at this point. So time will only tell, but I think Fire and Flavor retain tonight. Speaking of tag team championships, though, it's not the only tag team titles that are on the line. The Impact tag team championships are on the line. Rhino and Joe Doring may have been the ones to dethrone Finjuice as the Impact World Tag Team Champions, but Eric Young has allowed Violent by Design member Dina to fight alongside the War Machine for Violent by Design's first title defense against the Decay at Against All Odds tonight, after a backstage altercation that saw Eric Young and Crazy Steve dive deep into their past. Steve laid out the challenge for a title clash at Against All Odds. Who will leave the Impact as the Impact World Tag Team Champions. Now, I think, again, this one's relatively easy to predict here. Violent by Design retain. They've only just won the Tag Team Championships. There's far more at play here when it comes to Violent by Design, and I think far more members are going to come in. I really do. We saw that Crazy Steve and Eric Young have played off their history. I think Eric Young actually had a hand in training Crazy Steve. I could see a situation where Crazy Steve decides to turn on the Decay and he's the latest member of Violent by Design. I don't know how much he fits in that one, but to be honest, when it comes to the Decay stuff, I like Crazy Steve, I like Rosemary. Black Taurus is a fantastic worker. Great. I mean, if you've never seen him work and you just see the picture of him with the mask and the horns, you think, Mantar got a bit jacked. That's what you kind of think, but it's not. He's got a Keith Lee style to him, and some of the stuff that he can do for his sides are absolutely incredible. It blows me away every time I see him compete. So I have no doubts the match tonight will be good. I just would be absolutely flabbergasted to see the Decay win this one. And for me, it's not the Decay. That's the problem. I know it's got Rosemary. I know it's got Crazy Steve, but the Decay for me is Crazy Steve, Rosemary, Abyss, coming out to Marilyn Manson, all that kind of stuff, the Billy Corgan stuff. I appreciate them trying to do something with Crazy Steve and doing something with Rosemary and bringing in Black Taurus, but I'd rather they called themselves something else. It's a bit like the whole, we're bringing back the main event Mafia, but we've only got 2 people in. It's only Kurt Angle and Scott Steiner, maybe Sting, 3, but we're getting other people in. You know what I mean? I just don't feel that. I don't feel that. So do I think Crazy Steve will join Violent by Design? I don't think so. I'm still saying Alexander Wolf is a possibility. Not now. His contract expires with WWE in a couple of days. He wasn't released. They just said, look, your contract expires in the middle of June. We're not renewing you. So he can go wherever he wants in a couple of days or so. Don't think he's showing up here. This was pre-taped a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, so he's not showing up. But I could see Alexander Wolf joining Violent by Design. I know some of you have said that he said in interviews he wants to travel back to Europe and compete in Europe and Germany and all all that kind of stuff. He could do that. He can do that with Impact Wrestling. You know, they only tape once a month. Who's to say he can't come in, do a couple of tapings, and then fly back? Now, obviously, that's a bit difficult at the moment with the pandemic, but it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. So just because he said, well, I want to compete in Europe, doesn't mean that he's going to be moving back and living there all the time. He might want to do that, and he might do that, even if he moves back home. Flying over to the United States once a month, it's doable. You know, he did it for a while when it comes to NXT, so why wouldn't he do it with Impact Wrestling? Furthermore, of course, he said in some interviews, I think it was an interview he did with Fightful, he mentioned that a lot of the ideas that Eric Young had for Sanity, which obviously Alexander Wolf and Eric Young were part of in NXT and WWE, a lot of the ideas that Eric Young had for Sanity and even a reformation of Sanity in WWE, he's seeing now in Impact Wrestling by Violent by Design. This Violent by Design faction is kind of what Eric Young wanted for Sanity in WWE at various points. So if this is his Sanity, his WWE version of Sanity in Impact Wrestling, who's to say he doesn't bring in a former member of Sanity and Alexander Wolf? Now, does that happen here? No. But I would keep an eye on that for the future. But I expect Violent by Design to retain the Tag Team Championships here. I think that makes a lot of sense. This is going to be a fascinating one. Rich Swann versus W. Morrison. Now, this one's been building for weeks at this point, and Rich Swann will finally get his hands on W. Morrison as they meet in singles action at Against All Odds. Now, since Morrison arrived in Impact Wrestling, he has vowed to put the roster through the same agony he has suffered over the last several years. After making Willie Mack his first target, Rich Swann came to the aid of his best friend. Following a brutal blindside attack on Impact, will the former Impact World Champion exact his revenge, or will W. Morrison continue to assert his dominance? Now, I feel sorry for Willie Mack and Rich Swann. They constantly get involved in feuds because of each other. Well, the people attack Rich Swann, so Willie Mack has to fight them, or someone attacks Willie Mack, so Rich Swann has to fight. It's happened with Moose, it's happened with Eric Young, happens over and over again. Who thought being friends could be such a problem in terms of making matches and storylines for these guys? In terms of prediction here, I think W. Morrissey wins. Obviously, he's still new to the company, and they're keeping him very, very, very strong. Now, I know Rich Swann is a former world champion. I don't know, to answer people's questions about his contract. I know his contract was set to expire in May, but he showed up at Under Siege, and he's continued to be part of the most recent set of TV tapings, so I don't know. Maybe he has signed a new deal. Maybe he's just working on a deal, and he's still going to show up at TV tapings whilst this deal is figured out. I don't see him going anywhere else. I don't see him going back to WWE. I don't see WWE hiring anyone, frankly, at the moment. That isn't one of the people that they released. We've seen those rumors recently. I don't see Rich Swann going back to WWE. I don't see Rich Swann going to AEW. Frankly, AEW didn't even promote the match he had with Kenny Omega, so why would he go there now? So I think if you look at options, could he go to Ring of Honor? He could. Could he go to MLW? He could. But in Impact Wrestling, he's a former world champion. In this Impact universe, if you will, if you want to call it that, he's considered a big deal. He's considered a top draw. Again, he's a former world champion. One would think that that world championship eventually will come back around, or he'll at least get more opportunities for it in the future. It doesn't make any sense for him to go anywhere else because his stock isn't going to be as worthwhile anywhere else. He's not going to be this big fish in any other company, I think, right now. His best thing is to stay with Impact Wrestling, so I think he will. But I think W. Morrissey wins here. I think W. Morrissey wins because I don't think he should be doing jobs this early. I don't think he should be doing jobs, no disrespect to Rich Swann, even though Rich Swann is a former world champion. I think a victory here is credibility, more credibility for W. Morrissey because he's pitting a world champion. But W. Morrissey is this guy that's nearly 7 foot tall, dominating people, destroying people, talking about putting people through pain. Obviously, he's a guy that Impact know what they have in W. Morrissey. They realize that now this guy looks to be past his demons, looks to have beaten and battled his demons. They're using that as a storyline, which I don't mind as long as it's done tastefully, which it has been so far. This isn't a case of WWE exploiting Jeff Hardy's personal demons or exploiting WCW exploiting Scott Hall's demons or any kind of stuff like that. This isn't like that. This is kind of like the Eddie Guerrero situation where they use that as a method, a message of hope. That was a babyface, but they're doing this from a sort of a heel point of view in the sense that no one was there for me. I recovered, I got better, and still no one was there for me. So I'm going to put you through the pain that I went through. And he's got all the makings of a top heel. He really does. I think if you build up a babyface correctly, which I don't know if Sami Callihan's the right babyface to build up correctly for this spot, but certainly if you switch Moose into a top babyface in the company, moving towards eventually a Moose versus W. Morrissey match with Moose as the top babyface and W. Morrissey as the top heel, that's money. But it takes time to build that up. It takes time to get there. It takes time to have W. Morrissey win, destroy everyone, and then eventually you have the irresistible force moving the immovable objects, as they would say. That's what you want to get towards. So I think W. Morrissey wins here. I don't know if he wins convincingly. I think the match against Willie Mack actually took quite a lot of time at Impact Under Siege, and I would expect the same thing here. What I mentioned earlier, though, about the X Division is that styles make matches. Styles make fights, and this is certainly a clash of styles. You've got a big guy and a small guy. People will say it's unrealistic, but you can make it work if you tell the story right. W. Morrissey to dominate Rich Swann for the majority of this match, and then Rich Swann to do some amazing offense, some amazing high-flying stuff, get really, really close, but then eventually at the end, W. Morrissey just destroys him. That should be how it works. Do the Rey Mysterio dynamic in this one. So I think W. Morrissey wins this one, but I think this one could be, a sleeper. I really do. I think it could be the match of the night. Even though you've got some amazing matches on this show, I think this could be really, really special. Knockouts Championship is on the line. Deonna Purrazzo is defending against Rosemary. Now, in the closing moments of the colossal 10 knockout tag team match, it was Rosemary who led her team to victory with a pinfall over the reigning Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo. Following that victory, we can now confirm that the Decay's Demon Assassin will challenge Purrazzo for the Knockouts Championship at Against All Odds. Will Rosemary be the one to bring an end to the prosperous age of the Virtuosa? The answer quickly there is no. I don't think so. I don't think Deonna Purrazzo drops the Knockouts Championship here. If she does drop the Knockouts Championship, it's at Slammiversary. And I'm not just saying that because I'm saying that for every match, but the Slammiversary is the big show here, isn't it? Slammiversary is a big event because of all of the possible former WWE stars debuting, the former Impact stars returning, New Japan stars possibly coming across as well, fans returning. It's a big deal. You wouldn't have a reign like Deonna Purrazzo. She's been the Knockouts champion since, what is it, Turning Point last year, like November last year. Prior to that, she was champion for ages. She won the title at Slammiversary as well. There isn't anyone better on the roster right now than Deonna Purrazzo. Not that that's a reason for her to hold on to the championship, but Deonna Purrazzo is very, very, very quickly establishing herself as one of the best female wrestlers on the planet today. Triple H can talk about all of the best talents in WWE. That isn't true. You can talk about all the best talent want to go to WWE. That isn't true because one of the best female talents in the world today is currently in Impact Wrestling. She was released by WWE and she doesn't want to go back. She's very happy where she is right now because she's the champion in one of the top female divisions in the world. She's very happy in Impact Wrestling, and I think Deonna Purrazzo, is the perfect case study for proving why Triple H's comments about the top females are in WWE and they all want to go to WWE is not true. So I think Deonna Purrazzo retains here. As to who eventually beats her for the championship, your guess is as good as mine. There's some good free agents out there right now. I don't even know if any of those free agents come in and they're the ones to defeat Deonna Purrazzo. That's kind of the problem at this point, I suppose, is that the Knockouts division is incredibly strong, but who eventually beats Deonna Purrazzo? Who do you build up? You can let me know who you think will eventually beat Deonna Purrazzo in the comment section below, because I think that's a pretty difficult question to answer right now. Again, this one should be fine. This should be fun. I was almost surprised, frankly, that Rosemary actually got a pinfall victory over Deonna Purrazzo. Historically, I don't like that. If you've watched the channel before, you know I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that with WWE in terms of you get a title shot because you beat the champion. I much prefer the method that AEW kind of does most of the time, whereby you win, you go up a ranking system, and then you're the top contender, because that's more legitimate in terms of sporting, combat sports, boxing, MMA. You don't have a situation most of the time where someone faces the champion in a non-title fight, they beat him, and they go, right, next time we'll do it for the title. It doesn't really work like that. Now, people will say, well, that's the difference between pro wrestling and MMA. Pro wrestling is showbiz, MMA is legitimate. I understand that, but I do like to have a little bit of logic in this. I just don't like my champions being booked to be weak. Now, obviously, Deonna Purrazzo has hardly been booked to be weak, but I don't think anyone should be pinning Deonna Purrazzo at the moment, irrespective if they're Rosemary or not. So I think Deonna Purrazzo wins here tonight, but I think as every Deonna Purrazzo match is, it's just going to be the next step of just this unbelievable championship reign that she's having right now, because she is one of the best female wrestlers in the world today. A tag team street fight is going to happen tonight at Against All Odds as the Good Brothers face Tommy Dreamer and Sami Callihan. Now, things are about to get extreme when the Good Brothers battle Sami Callihan and Tommy Dreamer in a street fight against All Odds. It's no secret that Don Callis wants Callihan as far away from possible from the AEW and Impact World Champion Kenny Omega. He even went as far to put a hit out on the Callihan Death Machine, but when Scott D'Amore caught him in the act, he decided to give Callihan a chance at retribution. While Tommy Dreamer and Sami Callihan aren't exactly the best of friends, in fact they fought each other on several occasions, Dreamer cited the old adage that the enemy of my enemy is my friend when explaining why he wanted to team up with him. Will the Good Brothers take out Callihan once and for all, or will Callihan and Dreamer strike back in the war against Omega, Callis, and the Good Brothers? Now, I think that the Good Brothers win this one. The reason I say I think the Good Brothers win this one is because I think Tommy Dreamer has been added to this match to take the pinfall, mostly because the Good Brothers need a win. When's the last time the Good Brothers got a big win on pay-per-view or an Impact Plus event? Not for a while. They lost at Sacrifice to FinJuice. They lost at Impact Rebellion to FinJuice. They lost at Impact Under Siege in that six-man tag team match that also involved FinJuice. Carl Anson ate the pinfall. They have not been doing very well in terms of big matches here, and the Good Brothers are still one of the biggest names in Impact Wrestling today. Certainly have one of the biggest contracts. They have a year left on that contract as well. They're getting TV exposure on AEW every single week as well. They're going to be going back to New Japan once they possibly can. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be doing lots of losses here. Now, you could say, well, doesn't Sami Callihan need to be built up because of course, he's going to be in the main event at Slammiversary for that Impact World Championship. That is true. But I think the Good Brothers need the victory here more. So I think that's why Tommy Dreamer's been added in. I think he's been added in to add a little bit of controversy, a bit like, well, I don't like Don Callis and I don't like Sami Callihan, but gosh darn it, I'm going to go against Don Callis. So I think that we're going to have the Good Brothers get the victory over Tommy Dreamer here, and I think this is going to continue this Callihan issue that he obviously has with Omega and the Good Brothers as we lead into Slammiversary. Also, I guess an important point of this one is that they're saying, well, this is happening in a street fight at Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, so it prevents the Good Brothers from being able to travel all the way to Jacksonville, Florida for that main event inside Daly's place. That's the rationale. It's the old misdirect in terms of magicians. They're basically saying, look at this hand, see? The Good Brothers, they can't be in Jacksonville, Florida because they're in Nashville. But there are certainly other people that could be in Jacksonville. We'll touch on that in a second. So I think the Good Brothers win. Obviously, it goes into the favor of Dreamer and Callihan in the sense that these are two extreme guys. And Tommy Dreamer, I know people will look at this and say, Tommy Dreamer is on the creative team. He's a high-ranking producer, an important figure behind the scenes. Isn't it funny that every time there's a big match, he inserts himself into it, whether it's Slammiversary or Bound for Glory or now here, go straight in because Tommy Dreamer has to be involved. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not totally wrong. Sometimes it does feel a bit gratuitous, doesn't it, with Tommy Dreamer in Impact being like, see, he's got to be involved here, but look, I guess he's a name. And I think he's just someone who's going to get pinned. I really do think that's going to be the situation. But, I mean, I could be wrong. Although last time we did predictions for Impact Under Siege, I must say I only got one wrong. I don't think I'm going to do as well tonight because there's just no way. I don't have that kind of luck. But I think the Good Brothers win, but I think this should be a fun match. Speaking of fun matches, this is arguably one of the matches I'm looking forward to the most because I think this is going to be just so physical. And that's Satoshi Kojima versus Joe Doring in a Japanese kind of rematch of sorts. When Satoshi Kojima made his Impact debut, he wasted no time laying out the challenge for a match between him and longtime rival Joe Doring. In their last meeting over a decade ago, Kojima defeated Doring to successfully defend the All Japan Triple Crown Championship. Brace yourself for what promises to be another hard-hitting collision between the legend from New Japan Pro Wrestling and Violent by Design's most powerful force at Against All Odds. I'm excited for this one because I think the two beat the hell out of each other. I mean, I think they beat the tar out of each other. I don't pretend to know a load about All Japan Pro Wrestling. I know a little bit about New Japan. I will be totally honest. I haven't even seen Satoshi Kojima's previous matches with Joe Doring. If I've got time, I'll probably watch a couple before Against All Odds tonight. But I get the impression that these two guys are going to beat the hell out of each other. And it's going to be stiff, and it's going to be violent, and I am so excited for that. I'm also excited for it because, of course, it is taking place in that empty arena inside the Impact Zone. It's already happened. It's already been taped. But it is going to take place in there. And that means that these violent strikes, these violent forearms, punches, kicks, whatever, headbutts, you're going to hear it and feel it even more. Absolutely feel it even more. So I'm excited for this one. I don't know how long it's going to go. I don't suspect it's going to be a 20-minute classic, maybe 10 minutes. I'm going to go with Joe Doring and get the victory here. The reason that I say that is because you might say, well, Kojima's the legend and he's the babyface and he's coming over from New Japan. Why would he do the job? Because it's an Impact event and it's an Impact person like Joe Doring. And Joe Doring ain't been doing jobs. Great grammar by me, but he hasn't been doing jobs for many people. He's booked as this big, dominant monster by Violent by Design. He's this big, dominant monster. He's Eric Young's muscle. He's Eric Young's heavy. It doesn't, to me, make a lot of sense to see him lose, even if it's against a Kojima here. Now, we could see maybe a screwy finish in terms of a DQ, something like that, Violent by Design get involved. I would be against that, but I wouldn't rule it out in the sense, Impact has done those kind of finishes in the past. They didn't really care for that. So I don't know. I think Joe Doring wins in the same way that, these other New Japan stars, when they've come in, most of the time they've lost. Not all the time, of course, when you had Finn Juice win the Impact Tag Team Championships, but most of the time they've come out on the losing side of things. I think that'll probably be the same tonight. I think Joe Doring wins. I think it makes him be even bigger in Impact Wrestling, which he should be, because he is a big deal in Impact, and Kojima will lose and he'll go back to New Japan. I suspect that that's going to be the outcome. But I could see the other side of it in that Kojima wins because he's the big New Japan legend. He's a well-known name, all that kind of stuff. But I think from an Impact point of view, they would probably want Joe Doring to win on their own turf. So I'm going to go with Joe Doring to win this one. And then, of course, we have the main event. Impact World Championship on the line. Kenny Omega, the AEW and Impact World Champion, defending against Moose. But, of course, it doesn't take place in Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. It's taking place inside Daly's Place, the home of All Elite Wrestling in Jacksonville, Florida. Now, of course, at Impact Under Siege, Moose defeated Sami Callihan, Matt Cardona, Chris Bay, Trey Miguel, and Chris Sabin in a thrilling six-way number one contenders match to earn an opportunity at the Impact World Championship against Kenny Omega. After the bell rang, Moose sent a message to the reigning Impact World Champion when he looked straight into the camera and said, "I'm coming to take back what's ours." And against all odds, two of the greatest athletes in professional wrestling will step into the ring, but only one will leave with the Impact World Championship around their waist. As revealed by Scott D'Amore on the final Impact before Against All Odds, the highly anticipated championship match will take place from the home of AEW, Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. This is a true main event. It's very exciting. Surprising we're going to see it at Against All Odds. I thought they would move it to Slammiversary. I thought we would get a triple threat match, considering what's been going on with Sami Callihan. We're not. It's going to happen at Against All Odds. I don't see Omega dropping the championship. I don't see him dropping the championship. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Omega to drop the championship at a taped event at Against All Odds. All of this, Kenny Omega coming in, that Winter is Coming edition of Dynamite, coming in, competing at Hard to Kill, competing at Impact Rebellion, and probably, there's no way there's no way this doesn't lead to Kenny Omega at the very, very least competing at Slammiversary. There's no way, right? There has to be a situation where Omega at the very least is competing at Slammiversary, defending the Impact World Championship or losing it, whatever. I really don't see Kenny Omega dropping the championship here. Now, we did an AEW video this morning talking about, and a couple of people mentioned in the comment section, I really appreciate you guys for letting me know this, Omega's hurt. Omega's injured right now. He's hurting really badly. There are like 3 or 4 different injuries that Kenny Omega is dealing with right now. He's got stitches in his hand. He's got, bruises on his bones. He's got a bad shoulder that eventually he needs surgery, and he's hurting at the moment, and the schedule he is keeping up is crazy, really. Because he's defending the World Championship against Jungle Boy on Dynamite in a couple of weeks, defending it tonight, already taped, but you would think he's probably going to be defending it at Slammiversary. He's defending the AAA Mega Championship against Andrade at Triple Mania in August. The guy is just everywhere, and he's nearly falling apart. Now, because of that, you could say, well, is he going to drop the World Championship because he needs a rest? He needs a break. Eventually, the answer is yes. Eventually, he will drop the championship because he needs to. He needs some time off. That's not right now. I would assume the agreement was, when Kenny Omega made this deal all the way back in December, was that, okay, you're going to come in, compete at Hard to Kill, win the title at Impact Rebellion, probably drop it, maybe Slammiversary, Bound for Glory. I know previously I was saying Bound for Glory, but given the way things are looking at, I still think there's a rationale for him to keep it until Bound for Glory, but time will tell, especially with this schedule at the moment, that maybe is not likely. Nevertheless, considering the big event that Slammiversary is, considering a main event they want to sell, obviously they've sold out tickets, but it's probably tracking to be Impact's most successful event, even more successful than Rebellion earlier this year, which was Impact's most successful pay-per-view under the Anthem ownership. They know they're tracking towards that for Slammiversary, so it doesn't make any sense for Kenny Omega not to go into Slammiversary as the Impact World Champion. Because of that, he retains tonight at Against All Odds. How does he retain tonight? Wow, I don't know if he necessarily pins Moose. I could see a situation whereby we know, as I mentioned, the Good Brothers aren't getting involved. We know Don Callis is going to be in Jacksonville because he's Kenny Omega's manager, but we know the Good Brothers, who have got involved in the past, the Good Brothers and Sami Callihan, they're in Nashville, Tennessee. They're not in Jacksonville because they've got their street fight earlier on in the show. So we know that they're not getting involved, but there are other people that are in Jacksonville that are associated with Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers, namely the Young Bucks. I think what we're going to see is the Young Bucks get involved in this one to either, one, allow Kenny Omega to pin Moose, or get a double disqualification, a DQ, whatever kind of finish, a screwy finish that people won't be happy with. But either way, it opens up the possibility for Moose to be added to the match at Slammiversary. Then the triple threat match that we thought we might get at Against All Odds, we get at Slammiversary instead. So I could see a situation. Omega's leaving tonight as the Impact World Champion. He's going to defend it at Slammiversary in that big main event in front of crowds. That's going to happen. I think we either see the Young Bucks get involved because they're in Jacksonville, they're EVPs, and it's their return to Impact. Generation Me return, and they get involved, possibly have a match at Slammiversary 2. That could be certainly interesting. As to who they face off against, I don't know. I don't see it being Impact Tag Team Champions versus AEW Tag Team Champions because they're heels, but we could certainly see a tag team of sorts, whoever it may be, challenge the Young Bucks. Either way, I see Kenny Omega leaving Against All Odds tonight as the Impact World Champion. I think the Young Bucks get involved. Whether or not Omega beats Moose or not, that's what is going to be up for decision. I would be more surprised with Omega beating Moose as opposed to a DQ, which adds in Moose to the Sami Callihan and Kenny Omega match at Slammiversary. That's what I think we're getting. But certainly, what a card. What a card this is going to be, and it's very, very exciting. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Against All Odds tonight? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Remember, we are going to be doing a live watch along for Against All Odds tonight and a post-show reaction stream as well. So be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell. You'll be notified when we go live for both streams. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.